All right, welcome to another edition of Metal Roots. This is Wade, and I am joined tonight by Dakota Watson from the band Paralandra, the drummer. I know if you've watched previous episodes, we talked to Paul a few episodes ago, but now I want to talk to Dakota and kind of get his take on just the band and everything else that's been going on. So, Dakota, thanks for joining the program tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me, Wade. I'm happy to be here.
It's great, man. So we're just going to jump right in. I think we'll start with this kind of an open-ended question. So just tell me a little bit about Dakota, your childhood, growing up, what was life like for you?
Well, I am the youngest of three siblings. I have a sister and a brother, and I was both the whipping child and the whippy. I have a pretty quick wit, so although I've never really been a physical person, I could always outsmart and outjoke everybody else in the room. So that was kind of the dynamic. My brother would terrorize me, and I would just crack jokes and make him laugh to make him stop or whatever it would be. But grew up playing sports. Started playing music whenever I was around 10. Music has always been a huge thing in my family. Like either we all sing together quite a bit, or whether it be just listening to music, different things like that. It's always been a very big part of my life. So that was always intertwined, but it didn't really take off until later in life. Throughout childhood and things like that, sports were pretty much top priority. I played baseball and football, and I tried basketball. I played basketball in junior high, and it's a junior high basketball team. Like nobody's Kobe out there. So I was tall. I was like 6'2" in 8th grade. So I was tall, and they would just throw me out in the court, and I could sometimes make a layup or two. So I was like, I'm good enough for the team. And my junior year of high school, I thought I could, prove myself that I might be a 3-sport athlete. And one day after summer weights, we went in to do some free throw work, and I made 11 for 70 on the free throw line.
Okay.
And I decided to hang up the shoes on that one. Like, this might just not be for me.
Yeah.
But graduated high school out in Ash Grove, Missouri, and been here around the Springfield area. It was in high school whenever I started playing music. I was 13 or so, 12 or 13. I was in junior high when I played my first show.
Oh, wow.
For project graduation there at the high school. And it was like the coolest thing ever. Still one of my favorite shows I've ever played, because everybody just thought we were so cool. And even we were like, maybe we are cool. Who knows? But it was really, really fun. And it like really lit the flame, and continue on playing after that. Been in this point 2, 3, 4, 5 bands, I think. And 4 of those bands have been with my brother playing with me. So it's always been like almost a family thing between us two. And it's always been a close knit unit with the other guys I've played with, that kind of a thing. So music kind of took over as like the ultimate goal in life the older I got. But I'm just in it to have a good time, man. I like to laugh, joke around a lot. I like to laugh, and I like to make people laugh. I like long walks on the beach, and I'm just kidding. But it's kind of just a quick synopsis of who I might be.
Very cool. Well, you answered a few of my questions in there. In terms of your earliest memories of music, what do you remember? Was it just like your parents playing music in the house, or someone like a sibling or someone playing an instrument, or going to recitals, or what do you remember as sort of your introduction to music, if you can remember that far back?
There's a few memories, like very specific memories, that stick out to me. One of them being, well, I guess both of them being in my dad's Blazer back in the day, like early 2000s, and it was all leather interior, and it just burnt the crap out of your thighs every time you'd get into it on a sunny day.
Sure.
And all the seatbelt buckles were all metal with no plastic casings.
Exactly.
Men in black, and burn your fingertips off, and it was awful. But I remember riding in that Blazer, listening to Hot for Teacher and Humans Being by those songs specifically, for some reason, always stuck out to me. Like I remember the snare sound on Humans being so unique, and like always caught my attention. And then Hot for Teacher, I always thought it was the motorcycle song. I just called it the motorcycle song because the intro sounds like a motor.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Sounds like a Harley idling or something, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I would ask my dad, like, Dad, can you please play the motorcycle song, please? And he gets so frustrated, like, I don't know what that is. Please, like, give me some clues or something. But yeah, those were probably my first two like kind of head turner moments that I remember
Okay.
music kind of sticking out to me.
So you said you started playing drums at 10?
Mhm.
Okay. So when
On
did
an
you, yeah,
actual
you heard,
kit.
okay. So you heard Van Halen, but when did you say, this is something I think I want to try my hand at it? Was it shortly after hearing Van Halen and that, or you remember exactly when
It
you're like, I think I
was
want to play drums?
Yeah, it was a little bit later on down the road. I remember there's a Journey concert from 82 or 81 maybe in Houston, their Escape tour,
Mhm.
and that concert DVD, like, just blew me away. I couldn't believe, like, it just looked so fun. It just looked
Yeah,
so fun, and Steve Smith up there just ripping through his solo and just, like, making it look so easy. I remember
Well, you said just one time I wanna see hands together.
I remember that kinda being like the, "Oh, what is this?" kinda moment. But whenever it kind of sat in with me, like, this is I have to do this, is
yeah,
whenever I was around 12 years old and I went to go see Three Doors Down at my hometown, kind of one of the bigger venues. It's called the Shrine Mosque,
mhm,
and it's actually the first concert that Cassandra went to as well.
okay,
But it was my first concert, and I remember the opening band, Red, Christian
yeah,
rock band.
yep,
They opened the show and they came out just like super heavy and they were all headbanging so hard, like in unison.
yeah,
And I just thought it was the coolest. Like, I've got to do this. I got to do this. So it was kind of after that that I really started practicing more and trying to figure out what I could do to get to what they were doing.
sure. Now, did you take lessons, or you just kind of self-taught, just to jam into your favorite records, or a combination of both?
Totally self-taught.
Okay, cool.
I still can't read any drum music. I could do a decent sight read in high school choir, but as
Yeah,
far as drum music, it's just so far over my head. But I've always just learned by listening to what I like and then seeing if I can mimic the sounds on the kit.
yeah,
There's really no complicated explanation to it. It's really just that, like, if I think something, if it catches my ear, if I think it's super cool, I want to see if I can replicate it. And
yeah,
then in the process of doing that, you learn new licks, new grooves, new chops, all this kind of different things that these artists have used. And you can kind of goof off with that whenever you're not playing along to songs and you're just jamming out
sure,
in your bedroom one day. So it kind of one fed the other as it went, trying to learn songs and then just playing around and then going back and like, oh, I remember playing some specific thing whenever I was just goofing off. Well, they do that in this song, so I already know how to do that part of the song. So it's kind of it went back and
sure.
forth and just kept building on itself.
So who were some of your early favorites as you started to gravitate to this and say, okay, I want to do this? You mentioned Three Doors Down and Red, but is there anybody that was sort of like, this is my band? You know?
The first two were probably Journey and Van Halen. I think those are the first two bands that I remember like seeking out, trying to find more about them, trying to
Yeah.
listen to more of their music. Boston being right there behind it.
Oh yeah.
But as far as like specifically drummers, Alex Van Halen and Steve Smith were two of the biggest guys. And the third is actually kind of a surprising choice, but it was Scott Phillips, who he plays with Creed and Alter
Okay.
Bridge. But I only knew him from Creed at the time. I'm unashamedly a Creed fan. Judge me, I don't care. It's good. But I just thought it was really cool what he was doing. Like, I really liked his. He does a lot of like riding with his right hand on the ride or a crash or
Mhm.
doing whatever, and he does these awesome hi hat accents with his left hand, kind of just adding like an additional little bit of spice to his part.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was really cool, and I actually do that a lot now in my own playing. But it was those three guys specifically that I kind of gravitated towards and wanted to learn how they played. And then
Nice.
later on, Mike Portnoy definitely filled a big spot in that too.
Oh yeah.
Big
Yeah, for
Dream Theater
sure.
fan, and Mike Portnoy is just a mind blower.
Yeah. So what do you think of Dean Castronovo, who's drumming for Journey though for the last few years?
I
He's
I
a
think he's
monster
pretty
drummer too.
awesome.
Yeah.
I think he's like his voice is insane. I didn't know that he was a
I know,
singer at
right?
all, before knowing him being in
Yeah.
Journey. But just the vocal range that he has and like the tone of his voice is very impressive. Like, as a singing drummer, I definitely
Yeah.
listen for that kind of stuff. And his voice is fantastic, and he's got a really cool, aggressive, like heavy playing style,
Yeah,
which gives Journey a lot of bite and a lot of more energy than I think they were used to in the past.
sure.
I saw Steve Smith with Journey playing in 2016 or 17 in Springfield,
Oh,
and they
okay.
had like the whole, besides Steve Perry, they had the whole original band together.
Yeah,
And Steve Smith just absolutely ripped through all the parts, and he was flawless, and his
yeah,
technique was insane, and his solo was awesome. But I will say it was he has a very light touch. He does a lot of jazz things now, and he plays a lot of traditional grip type of stuff, and it's
sure.
maybe not the most heavy and aggressive stuff that can provide a super thick, backbeat thumping pulse of a rock song.
Yeah.
So although he's fantastic and he's one of my biggest influences ever, I think that Dean Castronovo brings a lot of youth and energy back into the band.
Well, the thing is about Dean, you talk about him being kind of a power drummer. I don't know if you know this or not, but you can go look it up on the internet. I'll give you some homework for tonight. So go look up a band called Wild Dogs. He was the drummer in Wild Dogs, which was like an early 80s, 82, 83, 84 metal band. I think I think they're out of like Washington, Portland, or somewhere like that. But he was a drummer for them. And we're talking like leather and chains kind of stuff, that whole 80s metal look. And he was the drummer for them. And it's straight up heavy metal. And Dean was the drummer for them. And then he played
Wow.
on a solo album by an instrumental shred guitar guy named Joey Tafoya, and he played drums on there. And he had a drum solo on that album, which was really cool. So he kind of comes from like a heavy background, so no wonder he kind of brings that vibe and energy to Journey.
That's awesome. I didn't know that about him. Wild
Yeah,
Dogs.
I'll try and send you a link if I can. Yeah, I'm sure you can find everything's on YouTube, right? But yeah,
Nice. I definitely want to check that out. I think he's a really, really good player.
yeah. So in terms of like albums, do you remember the first thing you bought? You went to the store with your own money, you saved it up, and said, "Ooh, I got to buy this album."
I don't know which one it was, but my first album I ever bought with my own money was a Dream Theater album.
Okay, good
I
deal.
was very much in the mindset of like, buy the album, don't just stream it.
Yeah,
And I bought all of their albums, as much as my college budget would afford me. I'd go
right.
every month and a half and buy one more and get the full collection of all 12 or 13 of them. But
Sure.
it was probably like Images and Words, maybe Train of Thought
Okay.
was the first album. Train of Thought, I think, is my favorite Dream Theater album. But I feel like I probably started with my collection, like chronologically with their career. I probably started with one of the earlier ones.
Okay. It's
But it
funny you
was
mentioned
definitely a
Dream.
Dream Theater album.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned them because years ago there was like a syndicated like metal radio show. I'm talking like late 80s, 89, whenever their first album came out, when Dream and Day
Mhm.
Unite. And I could only pick up that channel if it was a really clear night and the stars aligned and it would come in sort of on my radio because it was coming from, I don't know, a couple hours away somewhere. So this particular night I pull in the driveway, I'm still living at home, and I pull in and I could get the show. So I sat out in the car and listened to it. And they said, we got this new band called Dream Theater. And they played the Yitzy Jam,
Yeah.
which is, of course, Majesty backwards, which was their original band name. And they played that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who are these guys? I've never heard anything like this. And so from that day on, I was like, I got to investigate who these guys are. So I went out and bought When Dream and Day Unite on vinyl, you know.
Nice.
But yeah, it was kind of cool to be introduced to them on a radio program like that. So,
Yeah, definitely. I really wish I could have been around whenever Pull Me Under became so famous.
oh,
Because
yeah.
even the band is like, we don't know how this song got on the radio, but like it really just made their career skyrocket.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just one of the most mind-blowing bands I've ever heard, and I just can't get enough of them. And I am beyond words excited that Mike Portnoy's back in the
Oh,
band.
yeah.
Like Mangini, one of the most incredible drummers I've ever seen. I've seen him twice. I have some instructional DVDs.
Sure.
Monster of a player. But Mike Portnoy is the sound that so many people are familiar with.
Right.
And I feel like he's really been kind of itching to get back in the saddle after his, kind of side project hiatus that he's had for the past, 10 or 12 years.
Yeah.
But I love what he did with Avenged Sevenfold. I love the Liquid Tension stuff. He's done a lot of amazing things, but I'm very happy that he's back in Dream Theater.
Yeah, yeah, I know there's the winery dogs too, and so I don't know if the winery dogs is kind of on hiatus now because of Dream Theater, but I know there's some people bummed that maybe the winery dogs aren't going to be as busy because he's back with Dream Theater. But
Yeah.
I mean,
The
everything he's
Winery Dogs are
done,
cool.
side projects, has been good. Have you seen the video of them playing the old Jefferson Starship song "Jane," where it's like him and Joel Hoekstra and I'm trying to think. Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the singer's name. Dino Jalusic, and they do a killer version of Jane, but it's Mike on drums. It's one of those quarantine videos during COVID where they're all in their house recording their part and they assemble it all together. But if you
Yeah,
haven't seen that, they did a killer version of that song.
that is awesome. I definitely want to listen to that.
Jane, you say it's all over for you and me, girl. There's a time for love and a time for letting it be, baby.
This. So you said there was that time where it just kind of clicked with you, and you knew music is kind of I got to do this. So were your parents supportive of your musical passions and the rest of your family? I mean, you mentioned you had a family member that also played with you in a band. So did you have a pretty supportive family for your musical excursions?
Yeah, my family's always been very supportive of me being a musician. It goes all the way back to my grandpa on my mom's side. Played guitar, played the juice harp, sang. He was a really, really great alto. And so we kind of had a lot of musical talent or gifts or ability, I guess it would be a more modest way of saying that.
Yeah.
But kind of from him, I think, is where a lot of it came and went to my mom and her sister. They're both really good singers, and so it's been a family affair for sure. So everybody's been very supportive of me being a musician and trying to be as good as I can.
Yeah.
I will say there's been some reservations, respectful reservations, nothing outside of anything crazy, but just about seeking being a professional musician,
Hmm.
doing this for a
Yeah.
living, because it's not a guaranteed job. It's kind of you're hot when you're hot and you're not when you're not.
Sure.
So, we're trying as hard as we can to make this thing work and be as good as possible and reach as many people as we can. And I totally get the reservations about it. It's not
Yeah.
a stable 9 to 5, which, if that's what you want to do, then do it. If that's going to make you happy, you can make all the money in the world and buy whatever you need, buy whatever you want, and make sure you're secure in that way.
Hmm.
I have a different set of goals, and I'm just trying to chase it while I can because you never know if
Sure.
it's going to last or not. So might as well try,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that was one thing I know when I was talking to Paul too about that is, he talked about a band he had when he was younger that was starting to have a lot of success, but then they wanted to kind of take him up a notch, and he's like, "Oh, I've got little kids at home," and it's just like the timing wasn't right. So yeah, it is one of those things where when you're younger and don't maybe have as many commitments, it's a little easier to pursue it and put time and effort into it than when you're 50 plus like myself and you're looking towards retiring hopefully in a few years. And yeah, so it's tough.
Mhm.
I mean, the music business has gotten so tough. It's just, with just the way everything sort of fell apart in the last few years. And, I know bands like yourselves have to work super hard, which you guys do. You guys play a ton. You're very active on social media. You have a great presence, on social media. Uh, so yeah, it's that tough balancing act of, pushing it, but not pushing it too hard. But I talked about that with somebody recently too, is you don't want to like be that band that, oh, another post from these guys. But but the
Yeah,
genuine fans are going to be excited to see those posts. But it's like, yeah, how do you do that balancing act of not being too aggressive, but you got to put your name out there, and yeah, it's
yeah.
tough. You have to
I think
become
like,
a marketer, right?
oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Self promotion is the name of the game, and I am not one to toot my own horn at all. Like I play drums, dude. I'm in the back. Like I'm
Yeah,
not trying to be a superstar, but it does take quite a bit of self promotion. It's the name of the game, and it's how you get your name out there.
yeah,
And I think the way that you toe the line of being aggressive and annoying in people's feeds because they see so much of you, like if you just keep creating interesting stuff
hmm,
and you're genuine, you're not posting things or posting a lot of things in a mocking way or like, oh, here's another post, whatever it may be. If you're just creating genuinely interesting, funny, thoughtful, whatever it might be, if it really like engages the minds of your followers, then you could post 100 times a day,
yeah.
but every single thing gives you something else to think about.
Well, that's
So that's
that's one thing I really appreciate about you guys. I think your social media presence is great because you do you do humorous videos, like the recent one where they're all beating you up in the front yard, and you're like, "No, guys, we're playing with Warrant in Las Vegas." You know,
Yeah,
I mean, just
yeah,
your
our promos,
creativity,
man.
you guys. Like, I think what you see is what you get. I think people feel like they know you just from watching your videos. You guys aren't putting on some pretense or trying to be like rock stars or whatever. You're just being real, and I appreciate that about your band because I think that shows through. You know.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that. We are definitely just a bunch of regular old people, and we're all goofballs. We take what we do seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously.
Sure.
So we're able to laugh
Exactly.
at ourselves and have a good time and come up with crazy, insane, funny videos. But I mean, we're just regular people that just really like playing music.
Yeah.
So that's really
Exactly.
all it is, man. We're not trying to be anything else.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I think that shows through the love of the music and the love of what you're doing, and you can tell you guys genuinely get along and like each other, and that shows. And
Right. Yeah, there's no Eagles animosity going on.
right. So yeah, you want to talk about any of your previous bands because you said you'd had about 5 before Paralandra. I can't remember the name of the one you were in before Paralandra. With like right before them.
Possibly Backroad Story or Hunter Hathcote Band.
I don't know because I've seen
Well,
pictures of you with the shirt on of like the other band.
yes, yeah, you're right. So that was the rock band that I was in previous before Paralandra. But
Okay.
right before I was in Paralandra, I was actually in a couple country bands. So the career's kind of gone in
Yeah.
different directions there for sure. But first band was called Sound of Silence, and that lasted for a couple years, starting when I was in junior high. Like I said, we played our first show at Project Rad, and that was like just all covers, just classic rock
Sure.
covers. We do Foreigner, we do Van Halen if we could, play it well. But we do that kind of a thing. It was just a cover band. And then from that, most of the dudes were like, including my brother, were like, this is really, really fun. Why don't we like actually write our own stuff and try to make it?
Mhm.
Why don't we play our own shows, write our own stuff, have our name on something other than somebody else's stuff?
Yeah.
So we formed the band called Crowning Alice, which is the
Ah,
band on the shirt that you've seen.
okay. Yes.
And that band was with myself, my brother, our friend Chris, and Sawyer from the band. That was our first time playing together in a band, was in Crowning Alice. And then that went for several years. And along the line, we met a female country singer. And we were like, hey, let's get together and jam, see what happens. Who knows? So that formed into originally a cover band.
Mhm.
Originally a cover band. That's a terrible way of saying it. But started off as a cover band playing country music. And then we did end up writing 2 singles. And then from that band, we met another guy named Hunter Hathcote, who is a singer-songwriter, kind of Red Dirt style.
Yeah.
And we started playing shows with him, thought he was a really good songwriter. And so the band from Backroad Story changed over and started playing with Hunter Hathcote. And
Okay.
now I'm a Red Dirt drummer after being a rock drummer my whole life. I'm like, what just happened? What's going on? So that band was playing. We've known Paralandra since the Crowning Alice days, so we've always been on their radar. And then one by one, we were plucked from the country bands. Sawyer went first, and then I was a couple years after him in 2019. I
Yeah.
left the Hunter Hathcote band and then joined Paralandra.
Awesome. So when it comes to songwriting, again, I talked to Paul about this, but get your take on it. So how do you guys approach that? Is it
The majority of the time, it's one of the Carsons coming to rehearsal with some kind of something, whether Cassandra has hummed out a vocal melody or if she has actual lyrics, or if one of the two has come up with a chord progression or some kind of dueling melody or whatever it may be. A lot of times what turns into a Paralandra song starts with those two.
okay?
Uh, Sawyer and I are not really melody masters. We're the rhythm section, so we leave the intricate stuff to the other two. But they come to rehearsal and they're like, "Hey, I want to play this for you guys. Just if you want to play along with it, I'll loop it a couple times, and you can just jump in and just try some stuff out."
Sure.
So they'll start playing through it, and then Sawyer will usually join once he gets the chord progression down and what he can do to support on bass, and then I'll come in and basically just provide like an AC/DC beat, just
Sure.
1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, just so they can get what they're doing down. And then I'll kind of start to explore what the drums can be doing in that space. And as that progresses, we start getting a feel for what the groove of the song is going to be. And then from there, we can move on to, well, what's the next section of the song going to be?
Mhm.
Well, if we just played something, well, this kind of feels like a verse, or this kind of feels like a chorus of something. What can we write that goes out of it? What can come next? Like, what do we think the intro should sound like?
Mhm.
And all of those kind of building blocks start forming, but it really just starts with a guitar riff or a vocal riff or
Yeah.
something like that. But there are some times where they're setting up and I'm just sitting behind the kit, trying not to be the annoying drummer, playing all over them, tuning and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we'll just be sitting there, and Sawyer's over to my left on my hi-hat side, and I'll kind of just start playing, just passing the time, some kind of just little ditty, hi-hat, snare,
Sure.
kick, just keeping a beat, whatever, passing the time. And then Sawyer might join in and play some kind of fat bass backline, kind of just some thumpy, like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. So we'll just keep playing it. And then the other two, the Carsons, Cassandra and Paul, they're like, what do you guys got going on over there? And then they'll jump in and start playing what they can do on top of what we're doing.
Yeah. Sure.
So sometimes it does start with just the rhythm section coming up with a beat, but a lot of the time it's Cassandra or Paul coming to rehearsal with something that just might have popped into their head the night before or something like that.
Yeah. Now, is Paralandra the first band that you've actually recorded with, or had you done recordings with any of those previous bands?
The first recording I did was with Crowning Alice. We ended
Okay.
up doing 2 albums, totally self-made, self-promoted,
Yeah.
self-recorded, all
Wow.
the self stuff.
Yeah.
We did have help mastering the albums. Chris, our other guitar player, his uncle Orrin Thornton is a producer that works down in Nashville, and he's played touring guitar for all kinds of bands and stuff. So he's got the know-how of how to
Sure.
make a self-recorded album sound pretty awesome. So he, like, totally free of charge, kind of pro bono for a family thing, which was super nice of him. He
Awesome.
mastered the albums and made them sound better than anything we could have done for sure. But that was the first recording with that, but I have recorded with every band since then,
Okay.
whether it be just the 2 singles with
Yeah.
Backroad Story. I haven't done a whole lot with Hunter. He has a studio guy that works with Orrin, uh, that comes in and plays on a lot of his drum stuff, but I've
Okay.
recorded with everybody since Crowning Alice.
Nice. Now, when you record, have you used your kit, or was it like a studio kit that they had there, or?
Most of the time in the past, it's been, well, I take that back. It's been 50-50-ish. With Crowning Alice, since it was totally self-made, that was my own
Sure.
kit, just sitting in our living room. And I did both of those albums with my own kit. And then we went to Backroad Story, and I remember I recorded one song on a studio kit in the like the room A of the studio,
Mhm.
and then in room B, several months prior, I recorded my own kit on the other single.
Okay.
And then Hunter Hathcote stuff, that was all studio kit work. I didn't actually have to set up any of my own stuff. But with Paralandra, the first song I recorded with them was Level Win. It was our single back in 2019. And that was recorded on Kelly Clarkson's drummer's kit, I found out.
Wow.
But it was a studio kit in this really, really awesome recording space in Tennessee. And then whenever we progressed and did our full-length albums with Elvis down in Orlando, I used a studio kit on the first album. It's the same kit that Scott Phillips actually uses to record the Alter Bridge albums. It's a Ludwig Green Sparkle Vista Light, super, super good-looking kit.
Yeah.
And this most recent album was my kit. So I was finally able to bring the
Nice.
Pearl Masters Birch into the studio and give it some justice. That's the
I was
first time
gonna
that
ask
kit
you.
has been recorded.
Okay, I was going to ask you for maybe some of the gear junkies that are watching. Yeah, what is sort of your kit that you take on the road with you?
I warned you earlier, you might not get me to shut up after this, but so I'll go over the kind of my B rig kit, since it's a little bit smaller. I have a 5-piece snare, rack tom, and 2 floor toms. They're kind of weird sizes. They're like kind of collector's edition drums. It's the Pearl Masters Maple Cain and Abel drum set. Cain and Abel is the finish.
Okay.
The kick drum is a 24 by 14. Snare is just regular old 5.5 by 14, kind of the
Yeah.
standard thing. The rack tom is, I believe, a 13 by 9 or 13 by 10. I think it's a 4-inch difference, 13 by 9, and then 14 by 14, 16 by 16 floor tom. Clear emperor heads. It's my favorite kind of head. Smattering of symbols all around, all that kind of stuff. I'm not
Sure.
really a brand loyal person when it comes to symbols. It's just whatever fits the role of whatever that symbol needs to be. But the main rig that I play is my Pearl Masters Birch kit. And this is a lava babinga finish. I have a snare with it that's a 6.5 by 14. I have an auxiliary snare that's the Joey Jordison 1mm steel shell. I keep
Okay.
that just in case I blow my main snare out. But I have 8 by 10 rack tom, 12 by 9, 13 by 10, 16 by 16 floor tom, and then a 22 by 18 kick. So kind of the industry standard there.
Yep.
I'm on a 3-sided Pearl curved icon rack
Okay.
that I play with my full rig. I can use this as a 4-piece kit as well with just regular old tripod stands, but I prefer the big size.
Yeah.
To quote our friend Brutal Brian, never scale down. So always love to play the big kit. And then I have some electronics over on my side. I have a Roland SPDX pad that I use primarily for just bass drops throughout the set, like 808, just big kind of things
Yeah.
that like, shake your poop loose. And then I have a little Yamaha MG6 board and a Boss metronome. And I will
Okay.
plug the metronome as well as my monitor feed into that Yamaha board,
Mhm.
and then I'll just
Yep.
run an earphone jack out to my ears.
Gotcha.
So it's
Yep.
like an in-ear system, but it's kind of just finagled.
Yeah. A
But
little enclosed in your system for yourself. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. What do you have for a kick pedal?
Pearl Eliminator.
Okay.
It's the red line Eliminator, and I use the hard, flat plastic side.
Okay. Cool. Nice. I always like to, yeah, I'm just curious on gear. I know not everybody out there is going to care about this section, but hey, you drummers out there, you'll enjoy it, right?
Absolutely. And fun fact, I use drumsticks that are about 1/2 inch longer than regular drumsticks. So
Okay.
regular 5A, 5Bs are about 16 inches long, and I use sticks that are 16.5. Whenever I'm singing, I have to keep very good posture because, well, I can talk about my microphone. It's a Shure Beta 58, 56. I don't even know what I have, but it's a really good microphone for singing drummers. It's an actual drum microphone, kind of like if
Okay.
you use a 57 on your snare, you can use it
Mhm.
for vocals too. This is the same way, cancels out all outside noise. It's, directional, cuts out
Yeah.
the cymbals, works great. But I have that on a gooseneck that kind of comes over my shoulder from behind
Sure.
me and sits right here in front of my face. And it stays there on any song that I sing on, it stays there the entire song. Whether I'm singing for a minute and a half or not,
Yeah.
it's going to be there. So I have to keep very good posture. My torso has to be pretty much locked in where I'm going, like where I'm sitting. So I have to have a little bit of extra reach on those drumsticks to reach cymbals that I might
Yep.
be, kind of leaning back away from. I can't really lean into a cymbal hit or else I'll knock my microphone down. So
Gotcha.
I need just a little bit of extra reach to help me get those things that might be a little bit farther away.
Okay. Yeah, that's one thing I noticed about singing drummers is it's always like, you got the sound guy who swings the mic in for the song and he swings it back out or whatever you like your drum tech back there. But if you're
Yeah,
doing it
that's the
yourself, you got to
dream.
reach up, move the thing out of the way. And yeah,
Yeah,
kind of,
it's
it
been
puts you in
so
an awkward
bad.
position because like you say, now you have to stretch for everything because you have to sit back a little more.
Yeah. That's the dream, to have the drum tech swing the microphone in front of your face when you need to
Yeah.
sing and then get it out of your way when you're not. Like, that's a dream come true. The closest I've come to that was a country show that I played in Nashville at Tootsie's. We were in there playing our show, and I had this microphone, and it was, on just a boom stand sitting beside
Mhm.
me, and I was turning to sing into it, playing, turning to sing, and I hadn't tightened it all the way. So the next time I turned to sing, the microphone was all the way down at my waist. I was like, was in the middle of the song. I couldn't lift it up, and I sing really high vocals, and my high harmonies are on top of pretty much anything Cassandra does, and it was on top of everything we were doing then. So it's a pretty important harmony because, it just
Sure.
makes it sound better. But the microphone was literally sitting on my lap in the stand, so I could fix it, hold it at my mouth until he could figure out how to tighten the stand. He held it for the entire song right at my face. And I like the song finished. I was like, "Oh, thank you, dude." You tighten the stand, but that's the
Hey,
closest I've ever come to actually having it swung in front of my mouth.
you got to have those Spinal Tap moments, right? Like getting stuck in
Oh
your
yeah,
pod, you know,
yeah,
or whatever.
exactly. We
So
actually literally had a Spinal Tap moment. The guy that I mentioned before, Brutal Brian, who says never scale down. We were on tour with Ingve back in the day, and he was playing with Ingve, and it was I think the last show of the tour, which was a 7 week entire U.S. tour. Like it was a long haul.
yeah,
And this theater that we were playing in Florida had a replica of the 18-inch tall Stonehenge.
perfect.
And we found that before the show. We're like, oh, we have to do something with this. Like, brutal, brutal. Hey, do you like Spinal Tap? He's like, yeah. Like, dude, look what we found. He's like, oh, we got to do something with that. We're like, yeah, we know. So during our set, we were playing "She's So Heavy" by the Beatles as an interlude,
Okay.
kind of joining songs. And so they were playing the intro to that, and it's kind of do 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 this kind of heavy, like trotting kind of a feel. And Brutal Brian walks out with Stonehenge above his head, just like long hair all down in front of his face, slowly bringing this like a ceremony. He set it down on stage and bowed and backed away. And then all three of Sawyer, Paul, and Cassandra were just stomping in unison around little Stonehenge on the front
That's
of the
awesome.
stage. Oh, I was laughing so hard. It was so funny.
Hey, at least you didn't combust and leave just a glob on your stool, right? On your
I'm
drumstick.
still waiting for that. Like they made it sound like that was going to be a very serious problem. So we'll see.
Exactly. Watching that movie, it was very dangerous to be a drummer, you know? You might choke on someone else's vomit in a bizarre gardening accident or something.
Seriously, you never know. Yeah. My career is still young. We'll see what happens.
That's right, you got time yet.
Great.
So you guys obviously playing a lot. You probably get to play with a lot of other bands. Have there been some newer bands that you've been like, oh, these guys are pretty good? Anybody that you're kind of listening to currently that you discovered?
As far as newer bands, one of my favorite bands that I've ever played with, and we're actually lucky enough to be really good friends with them. It's a band from Columbia, Missouri called The Many Colored Death. And it's a three-piece band that is basically Rush meets grunge.
Okay.
And they are just such good musicians, all three of them. They shred so hard. Like they've opened for us a ton of times. We played shows with them all over the place. We took them on the road with us a couple years ago. And it was like you enjoy the show so much while it's happening because it's just
Yeah.
like, how are they doing this? They're actually playing this live. And then you realize, like, as they play their final downbeat, like, we have to follow that.
Right.
So it's
There's
like
that. Yeah.
they're all totally great people too. You know, it's all in good fun, but they definitely make us bring our A game, and I really, really love their music. They're another band that's been at it for about 10 years, like us. And like I said, they're from Columbia, so they're just a couple hours away from us. So we play with them as much as possible, and we love hanging out with them on a personal
Yeah.
level. But we love their music. That's probably been, as far as like newer bands, that's probably been my favorite group to play with. Uh, and it's cool that they're so close to our home too.
Yeah. Now playing drums obviously is very physical, right? You're using every limb in your body, and you got to have some stamina. So do you have any kind of like a warm up routine you do, stretching or anything? I know like singers will do like singing warm ups, or some of them will even use the little like I'm going to say vaping, not like the smoking vape, but the little vaporizer that
Yeah, like
lubricates
a
your throat and all that
humidifier
kind of
kind of a
stuff.
thing.
And yeah, drink a lot of water on show days, things like that. Do you have any kind of things you go through to stay, fit and prepared?
You know, I've actually only just started doing any kind of warm up at all. I've pretty much always been just like pace for 10 minutes and stretch out the forearms and call it good.
Yeah.
And I still do that. I don't pace as often because I'm a little bit more relaxed than I used to be, but I'll still, like stretch out the
Yep.
forearms
Yep.
all four ways. I'll take the individual fingers and kind of shake them loose a little bit. It's something that we did in baseball. I'll have Sawyer, our bass player, like grab these two fingers specifically, and he'll stand at arm length and kind of just shake my arm. He
Yeah.
kind of shakes out all the joints up to the shoulder, just relaxes and loosens everything. Try to make those two words go together. But after I do that, I'll do maybe some calf stretches too, put them up on a chair, or, stretch out the toes, do whatever. I'll try to twist a little bit in my hips, try to loosen up my hips a little bit, not seated or anything, but
Right.
standing, just move around, open everything up a little bit. And then I'll actually sit down with a practice pad and a pair of sticks and just start very lightly, just single taps at the same time. And I try to
Yeah.
get them as close to the same time as possible so I can try to line up my hands just in case I feel like any imbalances or anything. So I'll start with just kind of getting them synced up basically, and then soft singles, a trick that I learned from Mike Mangini actually.
Yeah.
But playing singles and trying to come up to the exact same level with your sticks as you play. So don't hit it hard enough to where it bounces.
Right.
Literally just boop, 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 and you're trying to get the stick back to the exact point where it started. And then you go higher, try to get
Okay.
your stick right where it started. So I'll try to do that, and then I'll start playing, a little bit quicker singles. I'll throw in some paradiddles in there, and then I'll usually, whenever I feel like things are starting to work together, I'll throw in some herdas and things like that that kind of require a little bit more precision playing, precision sticking. And once that sounds satisfactory to me, like I'm not just sounding like I'm trying to trudge through mud, if it
Yeah.
sounds like I'm actually playing things well and I feel like my hands are, coordinated again, I'll call it quits there. And then I'll
Cool.
usually have a pair of sticks in my hands, 5, 10 minutes before showtime, just arms hanging to my side. And I kind of just take my sticks and just kind of tap against my legs, keep the
Yep.
wrists
Yep.
loose. And that's really about it. It's nothing too crazy. I don't have any like practice kick pedals or anything that I have in the green room. I'll, bounce my feet and stuff like that, but I don't actually have pedals. But
Yeah.
yeah, that practice pad is really the main thing that I do just to make sure that everything is at least used to having something hitting something else in your
Right.
hands, because
Well,
it
that's the
can
thing,
kind of
because
be a
a lot
shock
of
to the
times,
system after a while.
well, because a lot of times you're traveling, right? You guys have driven 4, 5, 6, 7 hours, and you got to hop out and play a gig in 2 hours. You've been sitting in a van all day, and legs are cramped up, and yeah, so you have to do some stretches and things.
Definitely. Yeah. You can definitely feel cooped up, and like it's amazing how exhausting doing nothing in the van is.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
just so tiring, and it just makes everything tight in your back and your hips and everything. So yeah, it's really, really important to get out and try to loosen up. And like if you're just so tense and you're a ball of stress during the show, you're just something's going to get hurt. So
Yeah.
definitely want to try to
Exactly.
relax the muscles.
Yeah. So we'll take a little deviation here. So, question I like to ask is: do you have any guilty pleasure bands? Something people might be like surprised, like, "Oh, Dakota listens to them. I wouldn't have thought that."
A very, 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 very obscure band that I've come across. I don't even know how I came across them, honestly, but it's a band called Heilung,
Okay.
and they're from Sweden, Norway, Iceland, somewhere in that area.
Yeah.
And it's this is so embarrassing to talk about because it's like, why are you listening to this? But it is like all tribal, like European tribal drum percussion chanting kind of like like uh like siren singing kind of things, like
Hmm.
shaman stuff. Like it's very, very weird and obscure. I'm a history nerd, so it kind of scratches the history itch, where whenever I listen to the band, I imagine that this is what it sounded like, on the front lines of,
Yeah.
the Germanic people and the Romans or whoever it might have been. This is the music that was coming from the campfires in the woods the day before the battle. So it's kind of stuff like that. It's so
Yeah.
obscure, and it's literally just drums and chanting and vocals and stuff like that. There's no guitar work, there's no instruments of any kind other than percussion stuff. And it's so weird, but I just think it's really, really interesting. And they come out wearing like full costumes. Like one dude's dressed up as like a shaman. One chick has like deer antlers, and she's supposed to be like a white witch. And
Yeah.
everybody, like, they have warriors on stage with shields and spears. Like it's a crazy cool production, but a
Yeah.
very, very obscure band to listen to.
Yeah. Can't say I'm familiar with that one. That's the thing. I think, yeah, there's so many genres now, even within like metal. I mean, you've got some folk metal stuff and Viking metal and all these little subgenres where it's like, say, the full costumes. And the band Amon Amarth, are you familiar with them?
Yeah,
I mean, they
absolutely.
have like their stage setup is like a Viking ship. There's guys
Yeah.
out there with swords and shields and flames and all this stuff. I mean, it's pretty cool stage show.
So sick. Yeah. I think like I enjoy not like theatrical music in the sense that like, like music from a play, although, like
Mhm.
I'm not going to say I don't like music from plays, but stuff that's very theatrical and like dramatic and, like cathartic when you listen to it. Things like in the metal world, Devin Townsend is somebody that just a whole wall of sound comes at you when you listen to him, and it's covering
Yeah.
every chord and every sonic gap that he can fill, and it's just huge sounding when you listen to it. I love that. I love it whenever it's dramatic and like just oh my gosh, like your hair's being blown back whenever you
Sure.
listen to it. I love that kind of stuff. And there's a special place in my heart for the very stripped down singer-songwriter stuff. Like we said before the interview, if it's good, it's good. I'll listen to anything, but
Right.
I definitely like whenever music has like a flair to it, like Viking metal or whatever it might be, I just think it's
Yeah.
cool.
I find with most musicians too, obviously music takes a lot of your time, right? It's practicing, it's writing, it's rehearsing, it's your own personal practice time, it's whatever. So, do you have any kind of other hobbies or interests that are just something you do to chill out?
Man, the band really does take up a lot of time.
Yeah. Or you got any
um,
Netflix things you're binging or whatever?
oh man, Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
Better Call Saul. I just ended season 3, and if you've seen the show, it is a massive cliffhanger. My jaw was actually open whenever the credits rolled. But Better Call Saul, I am all aboard that train.
Okay.
I'm also a really, really huge fan of stand-up comedy. So I have Netflix is really, really like taking the ball. Is that the saying? Not drop the ball. They've taken the reins.
Sure. There you go.
Taking the reins, yes, of the stand-up comedy world as far as like putting specials online.
Yeah.
HBO used to be the name of the game for comedy specials, but Netflix has really stepped their game up, and they have all kinds of stand-up artists on there that I really, really enjoy. People like Dave Chappelle. There's Nate Bargatze on there. Like just
Hmm.
pretty much anybody I can think of that I like listening to, they're on Netflix too. But I'm a big fan of podcasts too. Two Bears, One Cave, Joe Rogan Experience. We listen to a lot of like weird history kind of podcasts and like supernatural type of stuff. So we've listened to the entirety of Supernatural with Ashley Flowers, which is like she covers the dancing disease back in France. She covered a gopher that talked to a family through the walls in Ireland. Just super obscure things like the Montauk Project. Just things that there might be a cover up involved, or
Sure.
like it's just very mysterious. We listen to a lot of that stuff too. So
Yeah.
we try to keep the mind engaged. Keep things fresh and listen to new things that are just going to blow us away and like we hearing the truth. It's crazy, but
Yeah. That's another question I had is obviously when you're a band like you guys that travels a lot, you spend a lot of time cooped up together in a van or car or whatever. So is there anything you guys do to sort of cut loose together? Do you go like play mini golf when you're out on the road or, you know, go play some soccer or do something to kind of cut loose?
we tried to go to batting cages one time in Providence, Rhode Island, and they were closed, and we were so upset. But uh, basically, being around each other is the enjoyment of it. Anytime we're in some new place, if we have time, we'll try to do the local stuff. We'll try to go do something fun that it's not like a chain tourist
Sure.
attraction. Like somewhere the locals might go to enjoy themselves. Like any chance that we get to do that, we do. We were just in Las Vegas and Glendale, Arizona, a couple weeks ago playing some shows. And on the way back, we were going to be driving through Albuquerque. And Paul used to live in Albuquerque for a while whenever he was a kid. And so we stopped there we had a whole day off on the way back home, stuck in Albuquerque. Not stuck, but staying in
Yeah.
Albuquerque. And he just took us to all the local spots. We went to Old Town Albuquerque and had lunch there, like really authentic, delicious food. And then he took us to like his buddy's comic book shop. He's a
That's cool.
Albuquerque native and childhood friends that have kept up forever. And he's got this incredible, incredible comic book shop that's got all kinds of collector's items and stuff. And then at the end of the night, he took us up to the crest of the Sandia Mountains on the outskirts of Albuquerque. And at sunset, we watched the city of Albuquerque sink into the darkness of the sun,
Yeah.
going behind these storm clouds and the distant mountains. Like, just so picturesque and literally breathtaking. It's like, it's just crazy to think that that's my life.
Yeah.
Like we get the chance to go do things like that. But being in the van so often, being around each other so often, we're all legitimately such good friends and we understand each other so well and we know what buttons to push like in a funny way.
Yeah.
We're always cracking up, always joking around with each other. it's not always just, constant laughter in the van because that would be exhausting. We go through phases on a long drive. There might be 30 minutes where nobody says a word. We're all just kind of doing our own thing, reading a book or, checking emails, doing whatever. There might be, 30 minutes where we're just constantly riffing on each other and coming up with jokes and just having just as my mom used to say, horse messing, which is just messing around with each other, like
Yeah.
we might go through that. We might just sit there and listen to whatever's playing on the radio, music on Spotify or
Sure.
podcasts. But literally just the fact that we're together is fun. Like we
Yeah.
enjoy being around each other so much that we find the enjoyment in the small things or the nothingness, that's just being together. So
Yeah.
I think we're
Exactly.
very lucky in the aspect that we just genuinely enjoy each other's company.
No, that's awesome. I mean, it truly is a blessing when you can get like a group like that you know, gets along and has no drama, and you're just all in it for the same purpose and reason. And yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I feel
sometimes
very
that's a
fortunate to
rarity,
be
you
part
know.
of the group. Yeah, yeah. I feel very fortunate to be a part of this group. There are a lot of good people in my group.
Well, so anything you want to promote right now? Anything you want to talk about with the band coming up? By the time this is posted, though, realize that some of this may be old news, but anything down the road you want to talk about, or anything you just want to say to the fans, or
Well, we got some cool stuff coming up with Paralandra. Obviously, we're still touring The Body Electric, which came out in April. We're still very stoked about all 10 of those songs that are on there. I think we did a pretty good job if, we do toot our own horn, but still promoting that album, still touring it. We have a show as of right now when this is being recorded. We have a show coming up this weekend with Lita Ford and Vixen in Grand Ronde, Oregon at Spirit Mountain Casino. It's going to be very, very fun. The following week, we're in St. Peters, Missouri with Lynch Mob, also going to be very fun. We've got a cool show coming up at Black Oak Amphitheater with a hairball coming up in Lampe, Missouri at the end
okay.
of August, I believe. Got a really fun festival around Springfield called Rock and Rogersville. We're playing in September. We're going on the road with Tantric and Scotty Austin coming up in October. A lot of cool stuff. We're going to be very, very busy coming up,
Yeah,
but
no,
we wouldn't have it any other way.
very cool. But yeah, like I say, you guys are definitely very busy, and that's why I thought, I wanted to really interview you two and kind of get just more information about you guys out there, because I think, like I told Paul, I see with you guys every album, there's just a little bit more progression of just, I don't want to say professionalism because you've been professional from the beginning, but I mean, just everything's just getting taken up a notch or two each time,
Yeah.
and you guys are getting more and more gigs and more things are happening for you. So yeah, kind of want to let people know you guys are one of the bands to watch that's coming up here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Our whole kind of code of ethics is basically just the harder you work, the harder you succeed. So we
Yeah.
want to be, the hardest working band out there. Whenever we're in town, not on the road, we have a strict 2 rehearsal a week schedule. That is
Okay.
every single week. So if we're not on the road, we're still playing together at least twice a week.
Right.
Then we might go on the road that weekend and play 2 times. So we have basically 4 rehearsals, 2 stage like show ready rehearsals, basically, if you will. So we're always playing together, always working as hard as we can. And on the back end, the stuff that people may not see, because you see all the stage pictures, but like we talked about before, all the
Yeah.
promotion that we have to do, all the videos that we do, all the promos, social media is massive for us because that's just the name of the game in the music business now is social media. We have a Patreon page as well, which I manage. So we have all the videos that go up on there for behind the scenes stuff, any kind of write up, post, video, poll, live stream. We do a lot of stuff on there. So we've always got something going on.
Yeah.
The last thing we want to be is stagnant. We never want to rest on our laurels. We always want to be working hard. We always want to be progressing and even working harder than what we did before. Like you mentioned, it seems like we keep, going up another rung on the ladder,
Right.
work ethic wise. It kind of going along with that, the past 2 times that we were in the studio recording our albums, the first time we were in the studio, the role that I played as a drummer in my own mind was just a supporting character. Like the drums are there to support what the guitars and bass are doing because there's a lot of really intricate dueling guitar solo type stuff on there. I kind of just wanted to stay out of the way and let them shine.
Yeah.
Sacrificing being a showy drummer and having cool riffs and fills and things like that. Whenever we were done recording that album, kind of towards the post-production side of things, I was told by somebody in the studio that my parts were adequate.
Hmm.
Like, it wasn't supposed to be any kind of backhanded anything like that, but
Yeah.
just that word stuck with me, adequate. Like, I know I can do better than adequate. So the next time we went to the studio to record the Body Electric, album was finished. Somebody in the studio, a different somebody, came up and said, "Man, what you just played the perfect part for every part in every song. That's what I want."
Yeah, that's
I'm
cool.
not trying to show off. I'm not trying to be obnoxious. I'm not trying to,
No,
like I said before, I sit behind the drums. I'm not trying to be the star. But I know that I have a lot to offer to make our music unique,
sure.
and I can do a lot of stuff back there to make sure that I don't get bored during shows. So
Well,
it's
exactly.
kind of one of those, like, you just want to keep progressing as artists and keep pushing the
Yeah.
boundaries and see what you can do.
Well, Dakota, this has been great. I really want to thank you for this. It's been a lot of fun for me just to talk to you and talk drums and music and gear and, history of the band and, yeah, get to know you a little better. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. Well, Wade, I appreciate you having me, man. It really has been really awesome talking with you. I feel like I've known you forever, even though we just met. Been so great to get along with. So I definitely appreciate you having me, and I really thank you for spreading the good word of Paralandra. We definitely
You bet.
appreciate every shout out that we can get. So thanks for
Well, and I
taking
was going to
your
tell
time with us.
the viewers watching this, make sure you look at the show description below. I'm going to put some links in there and things, so you can check out some videos and songs, and we'll have some stuff interspersed throughout this video that they'll see as well. So hopefully they'll check you out. You guys will gain some new fans and some new followers.
Cool. Well, I appreciate that, man. You've gained a new fan in me, so I definitely appreciate you,
Thanks.
Wade.
If you don't mind hanging on the line, I'm going to go ahead and sign off on the recording. But if you want to hang for a second, we'll do a little talking off air. So thanks, everybody. This has been Metal Roots with Dakota Watson, drummer from Paralandra. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.